And I'm Jay Percy.
And welcome to the Afro Animist Podcast. We are two Abia women and animist conjurers exploring witchcraft, healing and psychedelics.
The Afro Animist Podcast explores the secular through the spiritual, discussing life experiences through a sacred lens.
Here you'll get to hear talk about philosophy, metaphysics, occultism, shamanism, culture, healing, nature, animism,
the arts, conspiracies, psychedelics and witchcraft. Nothing is off the table in these discussions, which aim to get to the heart of what it means to be spiritual and Afro-diasporic in an increasingly sterile, authoritarian and Eurocentric world.
As Afro-Caribbean millennial Londoners, we keep it real whilst exploring the biggest mysteries of our multiverse. Join us in holding this space to cry, laugh, debate, build community and tear down oppressive structures.
I see you there, you're like limbering up for this episode. That's quite funny. Sorry. As you can see today, we're in my bedroom because my partner has the living room. Ridiculous, getting kicked out of my own space. But I'm going to be moving soon, so I'm going to have a whole room to myself, which is always going to be set up for
I've already got them.
Filming. We should get some green screens.
I've already got them in my Amazon basket. I got the all set up, the whole setup.
You can have
ready
witchy
to go
effects in the background. Welcome, you beautiful, beautiful being of the multiverse, to the Afro Animist Podcast. You are here today with me, Jay Percy, the artist.
Yes, I'm Nicola today. I don't know if you listened to the last episode. I wasn't sure who I was, but I'm pretty sure my name is Nicola. Pretty sure. So what are we talking about?
Crisis. She's pretty sure today, she's Nicola today.
Oh, yes. Yes.
We are talking about the art of ritual.
So. No, I'm not editing anything. This is going out just like this.
Do you want to try this again?
Life ain't perfect, guys.
Okay. There's going to be a moment of awkward stare at the camera. That's fine. Hi. We are mere human beings who like to engage in rituals. Yeah. But what do we mean by rituals?
Well, this is again, it's like I think it's a very multi-layered thing, ritual. I think it seems like when you say the word ritual, to my mind, and I think probably to many people's minds, what comes up to you is like some freaking like sacred circle in like some big woods or in like a church or something, and loads of candles everywhere. Yeah. Robes are definitely a part of that image.
So there's definitely a robe somewhere
involved. There may be nakedness as well. I don't know. This is just what it sounds like to me. Ritual and people just mumbling.
There might be fire.
Yeah, fire, definitely fire. There'll be obviously all the elements. There'll probably be some crazy mumblings in like some Latin or Aramaic or something crazy, and then that to me is funny because that isn't what I believe ritual is, but that's kind of what is brought up. But for me, ritual, I feel like is part of life, full stop, like just as human beings. Everything I do in a day, and that isn't because I've like I don't get up in the day and go, okay, well, now everything I do is going to be a ritual. But I feel like you can step back and you can look at like what rituals are and what they do, and then recognize that pretty much everything you do in your life is ritualistic. So brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, making your breakfast, picking the clothes you're going to wear, like prepping yourself for your day, all of that kind of stuff. Actually, I feel like falls very much into the category of ritual, of repetition, Before I blah blah on too much, you say something about it.
I just think you say like this idea of repetition. While you're sort of saying all of these different rituals, my mind for anything automatically goes to like, what's the pattern? What's the pattern of setting your teeth back to day one? Nice, clean, perfectly shiny, never having touched food. What's the point of you brushing your hair for it to sit in a certain way? It's like all of these things seem to be like individual ways of finding your like 0, right? Latitude, longitude. So you're trying to, in a ritual, in any of these moments, trying to it like reach your most divine self. It's like approaching divinity. I guess maybe is that why they say cleanliness is next to godliness?
Yeah, probably.
It's only just like
Probably. I love thinking about
Yeah.
cleanliness in that way. Okay, we're already going to go on a tangent, but
First tangent. We're going to start inviting you to take shots every time we go off on a tangent.
Oh yes, please. I mean, then that will be all that is happening, just shots being taken, because I think we're pretty much all about the tangent. I forgot what I was going to say. The tangent literally came in and just took away the whole freaking thing. So yeah, I don't know. I really do like thinking about cleanliness in that way, because we have all those things where we're, taught about it, like cleanliness is closer to God. And I don't feel like that. I mean, obviously it can literally mean the physical dirt that's on your body, but from my understanding of the nature of water and the reason and how we use it, it's it's not just about being physically clean, it's about being spiritually clean and clean through and through. And that is really, really important. I think just even thinking in an energetic way. So if you're thinking in an energetic way.
Sorry, 1 sec. Okay.
So even if you're thinking about, if you're thinking about it in a spiritual way, and we talk about cleaning ourselves a lot in a spiritual way, because we're talking about the kind of energetic effect of everything on you, and everything in the world has this electromagnetic field which interacts with each other all the time. So we use water to clean that as well, to clean like the spiritual energy. And I think when it comes to ritual, it's about that cleanliness is important, because it's about giving yourself the space to feel completely you. When you're doing rituals, you're usually trying to create change or a certain understandings about things. So you really want to go into that being as clean kind of physically and spiritually as you possibly can be for that moment, so that you can feel the way that you really feel, so that you can also then feel the change that is created by doing that ritual, and feel what that difference is without all the other shit on top of you. I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not really a tangent.
It does make loads of sense. Yeah, because if you're literally carrying around like the physical grime of of the day to day, like taking that layer off to get back to the core of you, who you are, away from all of that pollution and grime. That to me is an important part of the ceremony, because it's setting yourself up to be the perfect ground for attracting the good that you're trying to attract.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that feels like definitely a bit of a tangent. This idea of cleanliness. I'm so sorry.
So, do you feel like you do any rituals on like a day to day?
Yeah, I can start with the really mundane. So, on a daily basis, I always get up and then I'm not ready to get out of bed. So, knowing that I feel this way in the mornings, I started to make the best of that time. So instead of getting out of bed, or instead of just falling back to sleep right away, I make sure I take that time in the morning to breathe, like do some really deep breathing exercises. Literally just lying in lying in bed. All I'm doing is breathing in, breathing out, and like watching the breath. And then sometimes I might start to bring in some like aspirational thoughts, like today you're going to deal with conflict gracefully, or things in an office that you have to battle with, like that grind down your soul. Like I set my affirmations to how I'm going to tackle those things in a positive way, using positive framing. I don't really speak out loud. I will just think through these things as I'm breathing. That's a big part for me in terms of getting up in my mornings and feeling centered, because at the moment I've just got so many things to one side of my bed. I can't like get out of bed and just put my feet on the floor, which I feel is just, it's such an important thing to be able to get out of bed and metaphorically have your feet on the ground. I don't have that because I'm in between. I'm about to move to a bigger place right now. So that sets me off before I go and like brush my teeth. And while I'm brushing my teeth, I tend to be thinking through my day and like positively framing what I'm going to see and experience throughout my day. I might do a little speaking in the mirror before, like affirmations, before I then go on to have my breakfast. And I tend to have the same breakfast every morning. At the moment, I'm really loving like blueberries, so making sure every breakfast has those. And then I try and go for a walk and then get to work. That's my working week. Um, that it feels forced. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I'm having to do some of these things because I'm not doing what I really want to do, which is like sleep till 8, roll out of bed, and then go for a long walk, and then come back and do like the work I love. I have to be at my desk at a certain time, if that makes sense. Those rituals, even though they feel forced, they are so necessary right now for me. Working in an office as someone who is as creative as myself, I feel like, if I was doing something more creative, I'd feel a little more like myself. So I have to put like rituals in place in the mornings to keep myself feeling like myself while I'm doing something that myself wouldn't do. Does that make
That
sense?
makes complete.
Like, I don't feel like my true self would do this,
Yeah.
but you have to. So you do what you have to
That
do.
makes complete and utter sense, and I love that you've actually spoken about that, and actually how you framed the ritual aspect of those things so simply, because it can be like ritual can seem like such a big dramatic thing, and actually it doesn't have to be. Like,
Mm,
so simply, you wake up as soon as you become awake, you think, or you try and manifest the day that you want. Gosh, I can't speak.
yeah.
And that, it's such a simple thing, like lying down and just doing that prep for yourself, or doing those reminders for yourself, those mantras for yourself, is so, I feel like,
Mm,
such an important thing to do, and so simple. And I think for you, dear listener, hearing this, if you're thinking about how difficult it could be to get into ritual, I think what we really love, I know I do anyway, like, is scaling this stuff back to make it actually work in real modern life, because we don't live 500 years ago
yeah.
in a fucking forest with like all the natural resources that we need and like all that understanding and that connection. We don't. That isn't our reality. So this stuff does need to be
Yeah.
adjusted for modern life. And like you're talking about, most of us do have to, even if it's not for our entire lives, do certain things that we don't want to do, especially in regards to work. So how are you supporting yourself?
Mm,
And that's why we do ritual. We do rituals to support ourselves. How are you supporting yourself to be
mm,
able to get through that and make it work for you in the way that you need it to, while you have to be in that process? And that, even talking about Jay
mm,
specifically, so like, it's in the last like year and a half of knowing Jay as well, it's like her growth has been insane with this stuff. Like, even where she's at now with moving into this new place, and just the levels of manifestation, babe, are insane. And I know that it's been stressful for
yeah.
you as well. I know that you've been literally banging your head
Oh,
against a fucking wall doing stuff that you don't want to do. And it's even harder when you're doing that
yeah.
when you know what you want to do, So
Yeah.
I don't know. I have so much respect for that journey that you've been on with it. Like, and
Thank
you're
you.
fucking smacking it, babe. Smacking it. Um,
Oh, that's really lovely. Thank you so much.
we
What do you feel like you're doing on a daily
want to
basis
say,
that feels, because I know I speak to you all the time about ritual and even the obya, and you're like, I don't feel I do much. But when you explain to me what you're doing, it always feels like that feels quite ritualistic. Are you understanding what you're
yeah,
doing
I
here?
think I'm one of those funny people who I do a lot of things, but then like turn around and say, I don't do anything. And sometimes I don't do things the way I want to do them. So then in my head, I haven't done them. But the
Yeah.
reality is,
You
I've done them.
discount it entirely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like my life is quite ritualistic, full stop. I just feel like I'm naturally quite like that. And because I've been into this stuff
Mm,
for literally forever, it's always been a big, massive interest in mine. I've always had an awareness of kind of like what's around the moon, the stars, all that kind of shit.
mm,
And I think when you think about things like that, then for me anyway, sometimes it makes my more mundane actions more purposeful. If that makes sense. So like, and
yeah.
I have had so many beautiful lessons on this as well from teachers. So my shamanic teacher's teacher, for example, I've done some work with her. I went to meet her one time. She was doing a talk in London. She's from Ecuador.
Mm,
And she was saying that, I mean, she said some things that probably lots of people wouldn't be able to agree with nowadays, but she's from a very different culture. But she was saying, you know, everything is ritual, and it's so important, even like, especially as a woman, to realize that everything you do is ritual. And she's the first person who made me realize that when I get up and brush my teeth in the morning, that repetitive action is a ritual. It's a ritual of self-care, and it's a ritual that if I want, I can be fully present with. And if you can think about
Yeah.
the simplicity of those rituals like that, like it's moments to be fully present. So if I'm brushing my teeth, you know, you think about your morning, you might get up, you might have your shower, brush your teeth, have your breakfast, whatever, but you can do all those things completely, like not paying attention to what you're doing, just
Mindlessly.
mindlessly
Yeah.
thinking about what you got to do in the afternoon or whatever. But if you can stand there and brush your teeth in that 2 minutes, you're actually just dedicated to the action of brushing your teeth. Your mind is focused on that. Then it's actually is kind of like a meditation. It's like practicing, like
Yeah.
bringing that mind in and having it solely focused. And then also what comes from that, for me, and this is going to sound crazy, but even something as simple as brushing my teeth can be like, oh, for fuck's sake, why do I need to brush my teeth again? For fuck's sake.
No, I get so like, oh my God, this is a point of maintenance that feels like dehumanizing. Why am I having to do this every day? Twice a day? Jeez.
You know, so even that, but then if you can draw it back to that, sometimes in the morning I have to do that for myself, because like you, I'll wake up, I'll be pissed, and unless I do something, I'm just going to be pissed the whole day. Like, so I've been brushing my teeth and just thinking about how
I wake up and choose violence.
Sometimes it happens, I'm not gonna lie. But you know, so I can be brushing my teeth and focus on that action of brushing my teeth, and recognizing that in the moment I'm doing self-care. I think for me, one of the biggest things of ritual that I do on a day-to-day is my morning shower. Like, I love to have a shower in the evening, so I love to wash off stuff, but for me, if I don't have a shower in the morning, smelly or not, and I feel like I'm in a different world a lot of the time. It takes me a lot longer to come in. And I feel like a lot of people say that. They're just like, oh, if you get up and get into the shower, then you'll wake up. Think about why that is. It isn't just because water's hitting your body and it's stimulating. I mean, it is because of that, stimulating nervous system, all that kind of shit. But in the nature of water, elementally bridges the worlds, you know. So water is a medium through which spirit can travel.
Oh my God, yeah, between air,
exactly.
You know, it's a medium.
Think about scrying. Think about the fact that you always have the water on your altar. That's what it's doing. It's there to invite the spirits. So when I have my shower, I literally walk into the shower and I stand there and I wash off my dream world. You know, and then so when I step out of the shower, it's almost like that's when I've stepped out of my dream world. That's when I've woken up. That's when I now am aware of this reality fully. I'm here. So, you know, even as simple as that, like your morning shower, it can literally change the fucking game of your day. And for me, it's things like that. Even when I'm walking the dog, and that can happen at different times of day. So it's not like one of those rituals that's 1,000% set in a timetable. But that for me becomes really ritualistic as well, of kind of like, it's my moment, one of my main moments of connection with nature. I'm out there, I'm with my dog. It's just trees and fields and birds and insects and rabbits and all that kind of shit. And I'm just like experiencing that. And yeah, so I do actually live my life in a very ritualistic way like that. And also because I am a very habitual person, ritual feels very comfortable for me. It makes a lot of sense. Do you, what kind of stuff do you do when it comes to, obviously we're talking about like the mundane ritual, if that makes sense. But when it comes to like a more ceremonial thing, what's your understanding of that ritual for you in that regards? What does it do for you? Why would we even do it?
Well, I like to think that we alter at the altar. Alter, ALTER, at the altar, ALTAR.
You're the first person I heard say that, and it made so much sense to me when you first said it. I was like, fuck yeah, that's what it's called.
That's what we do. We go there to change, and not this sense of like changing something about yourself because you're so terrible, but if you're living this human experience right, if you're, you know, following your life's purpose, your individual life's purpose and destiny, right, then you're growing at each stage. You're growing more, you know, empathy, understanding, connectedness, whatever it is you're supposed to learn on your path, right? So going to this space and clearing out all of the old energy, you know, using camphor if you use camphor, using sage if you use sage, or bamboo. There are a million things that we can use, sandalwood, to clear the energy out of a space, and then introduce new energy to the space through the burning of something that gives us a quality of something else that we're trying to bring in, whether it be like love or money. Normally it's those two things, right? There are other things like personal growth that you're trying to bring in, or perhaps you want to trust your intuition more. Whatever it is you're trying to bring into that space, it's transformative, you know. It's so important to be able to take that opportunity to do that. This is why, even though I get kind of annoyed with the hype of like the new moon and the full moon rituals, I see the benefit. I really do see the benefit of it. So maybe hype is the wrong word. I guess we're seeing increasing amount of people seeing the importance of setting a point within the lunar calendar in order to like renew the self. I think taking that time to understand the seasons and renewing yourself with the seasons is incredibly poignant, because it's what we would have been doing when we weren't in such sturdy houses, right? You would have more connection with the outdoors. You wouldn't have had all of these street lights on. You would have been connecting to nature in a repetitive way. And that also facilitates that change. Because I think ultimately, once you can get yourself into a space where you see that things can change and grow, you start to develop less of an attachment to things in your life. And I mean like in a healthy way. You're not going to be so tight on holding on to those grudges or those emotions that aren't serving you, because you're reminded that everything is cyclical, and you can come back to the altar and you can discuss these things, you can release these things, and then you can invite new things out in their place, because you never want to invite a void into your life. If you invite a void into your life, it's going to fill with something out of your control, right? So we can release and we can bring in, and that's what I think of when I think of like high ritual, high ceremony. I also kind of think about how, you know, we're so taken away from these in our personal lives, but the church has used them for millennia. All different mainstream religions have used them for millennia. Political systems have used these techniques for millennia. Like, we've just had an election here in the UK. We always vote on a Thursday, Thor's Day. Quite interesting. Thor is the type of character we see in ancient Greece as like Zeus. It's that sort of bearded patriarchal father, right? Almost like picking a day of a ritual which is about the patriarchal father helps to maintain a system we're in, right? I think it does. What would happen if they started changing their votes to a Friday, Freya's Day, the Divine Feminine's Day? You know, it's very specifically picked in this country. It's always around May, which is always going to be, if you're looking at sidereal, it's going to be Aries season. If you're looking at Western, it's Taurus season. Either way, these are both animal archetypes who are like ramming animals, right? They're full steaming ahead in terms of what they want. I think it's just a very, very specific, powerful combination of timings, picking a Thursday and that sort of time of the year in order to maintain the patriarchal systems we're in. Bit of magical conspiracy for you there.
It's all a fucking conspiracy, as Jay said. I think it's really interesting, actually.
It's all a fucking conspiracy. All of it.
I think it's really interesting that you pull up about, like, for example, the moon thing, because I've really struggled with that as well. Like, you know, all of a sudden, it's like
there's about a million witches on Instagram doing like new moon rituals,
like moon
which I'm not snubbing at all. I've joined them. I love them.
And we want the info. But there is that thing of a bit like where you're like, oh right, this is a new thing, and it almost feels like the new Wicca. Moon ritual work is like the new Wicca, and it's kind of like a doorway in. But I totally get it, because the moon is one of those beautiful celestial bodies that we have that really fucking gives direction. If you know, if you are an animist, if you are somebody who connects to nature in that way, then what you will start to realize is, as you just look around you at the natural world, that all the instructions you need are in the natural world if you can stop and pay attention. So the nature of the
Yeah.
moon and her waxing and waning, how she gets to being full and new and dark, like all of that kind of stuff is important. We can see it. We can see the effect it literally has on the planet, on our bodies, on the water, and so therefore it's a very natural place to, you know, to go to and to begin to practicing using elemental energies. And it does make a lot of sense. I mean, seriously, if I'm confused about what I should be doing and I feel like I want to do a ritual, then I'm just going to go, what's the moon saying? Let's just link it to that. It's a really good place to start, and to utilize all of those energies. I just find it really interesting to when you're saying about like our political system. So I feel like when we did our episodes about cults, we spoke a little bit about how how pretty much, you know, most kind of situations we're in could have cultic ideologies or ways of working,
Yeah.
and that the government has that. And I think it is really important, even though we do think it's a conspiracy, like all that kind of shit, whatever you believe, like to realize that all of these things in our society all these important things are done on times and days that were actually important to our ancestors. You know, that it's not just, we haven't pulled out a fucking day out of nowhere.
Day out of
You
our
know what I
ass.
mean? It's related.
Here's a random day.
Related to what
Yeah.
what the language is saying happens on that
Well, it's also very close to Beltane, isn't
day.
it? It's like a couple of the same weekend as Beltane.
Oh, shame. Yeah, we just had Beltane.
Like these things are picked intentionally. They're not, oh yeah, we just picked a day. Like, no, you didn't. This is literally the date in and of itself is designed to harness power to maintain the archetype of Zeus. What is the archetype of Zeus? A powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing, all-loving white guy on a cloud. Like,
Yeah.
is that not the society that we're living in?
Yeah.
There's candles everywhere. They're the fact checkers. They're the truth holders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it isn't. This is a part of. This is why I feel what we're doing, talking about occultism, is it doesn't make us devil worshippers. It's so important, because when you can start to see how these systems are run and the dates they pick and the way they run their rituals, it's no different than any other religion. And when you can start to look at it like that, you can take a step away from it and go, whoa, I was in a mass cult.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a mass cult in whatever way it was. They'd convinced me of a thing that was really outside of the true reality of things, which, when we pare it back down to a basic message, is that we are nature and we're meant to be understanding what that means. Not half of the bullshit they've got us doing.
No, because if we all sat there and
But
realised
they pick these dates because it keeps us in their trance.
exactly. And if we all sat there and realised that, then they'd have no power over us, would they? Yeah, it's really fucking pretty straightforward. Like, and fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's I don't know, when it comes to ritual as well, I feel like for human beings, I just feel like it's a really necessary and natural part of the way that we behave. I think it's kind of like one of those kind of almost instinctual things. And with with the governments and their rituals and all of that kind of stuff, I think if you look, you will find it's really kind of obvious. Well, today is a day of brain blanks. It really is. Maybe I should do a ritual about this.
I reckon when we're having brain blanks around such an important topic, I sort of see it as is something interfering with us on purpose, because this is a powerful topic, and it's a powerful topic to talk about because it's not talked about enough. No one talks about how mundane ritual is. No one talks about the fact that last year or the year before, gosh, I'm losing track of time. George Floyd's murder being shared around the world, him being kneeled on like that with what has been a symbol of black empowerment since Colin Kaepernick started bringing that to the forefront, using symbols against people to cause such an atrocious murder. That whole thing to me looked ritualistic.
I totally agree.
I'm not saying premeditated or didn't happen. Please do not take what I'm saying out of context. This happened. This was real. This was real and blood curdling and horrible that you could do that to someone. And it was played out to the world like a ritual.
Yeah.
And then George Floyd called blue murder to his mother. There was an invocation. There was a murder. All of that was shared and repeated again and again and again. And if you know anything about rituals, you will start to see how much of that brought the world to its knees. I don't talk about this lightly or with jest, or we're trying to insert spirituality into somewhere where it's not needed, where it's just a political situation. None of this is just political. None of this is just political. And if you think it is just political, then they've allowed you to think it is just political. They don't think it's just political. They didn't strip millions of Africans from their spirituality, illegalize it, because it was just some frivolous joy thing that our ancestors did.
Yeah.
They didn't take these rituals and then hide them behind closed doors for themselves for no reason. When we start to discuss the weight of ritual, from the mundane to the severe and disgusting, like a murder at the hands of the state, literally a figurehead of the state, then you'll start to see how these things are, they're transformative beyond all reckoning.
Well, 100%. I mean, look, in exactly what you're talking about with George Floyd, like whether or not, I agree with you that not that it was a conscious thing, but if we look at the effects that it had, it really created space for a whole movement. Like, and it did create, I mean, I don't know, it definitely didn't create as much of a change as it should have, but these things never do, and plenty of people have died in these crazy fucking circumstances. But with the effect that it had on the world, the knock-on effect that it had, the conversations that it brought up, this is what we look for when we do ritual. We create change through it. And I think that those are all really important points, Jay. We live in a Christian society, whether or not, you know, every country has a religion. We have to remember that. Like, it's one of the things that defines your country. Like, and this country, for example, the West, North America, here, we are known as Christian countries. All of our laws have been made at times when the faith was the main thing that was ruling us. You know, so we even have to think now in our modern times, with our modern law, our modern politics, they are all literally still knock-ons of what was designed back in the day when Christianity was ruling. And I say back in the day, it really has only been in more recent times that it's kind of okay, I guess, not to be a Christian. So when we think about it like that, and we think about all of the, like, just the fact that we've had tens of fucking generations of believing and behaving in certain ways. I mean, this comes back to our last episode, actually, our generational curses and how we behave, I think. That certain rituals have always defined our behavior, and a lot of the time we aren't in control of those rituals. We aren't in charge or even aware of the rituals that are happening. But it's even things like fucking, I mean, there's obviously the conversation about Christmas and when Christmas is, and did Jesus even fucking was he born then, or was he born in October or September, or who the fuck knows? I don't know. Like, but it definitely wasn't 25th of December. But what did happen around that time of year is Yule. What does happen around that time of year is certain magical things with the stars and their alignment. And we have I think for thousands of years had celebrations at those time of years because they're seasonal celebrations, and that's one thing that we've always had is the fucking seasons, right? But to recognize that all of our modern holidays, all of our modern celebrations and rituals are based are usually based on the exact same days or around the same times of year as our old rituals that were actually completely and utterly linked to the reality, planet, space that we live in, is really important, I think, to actually begin to take back a bit of power and control with it. I think ritual is so important for human beings. And like I said, it's the place that I feel really comfortable, and I feel like it naturally, like, yeah, if you just look at your life, you will recognize that actually naturally you do things, we might call them habits, but you could also call them rituals. And I just think there's so much space in it. For me, doing a ritual, like even like just setting a space. So when you if you want to do like a proper ritual, if you're going to go, okay, I'm going to do a ritual with the new moon to like fucking plant some seeds to grow over the next month, this idea or whatever it is, then you would set your space, you know. So you do the things that you would do when you were meditating or whatever else, doing your spell work. You're going to have your representations of each element. So you're going to have your water, you're going to have your fire in the form of a candle, you may have some kind of earth or some crystals or something, you may have incense or feathers or whatever to represent air. So you're going to have all of these elements there. As soon as you've kind of brought that stuff into your space, you feel it. You then are going to connect in with that space, you know. So you're going to meditate or whatever you do to kind of focus in. You're going to burn your incense, you're going to clear the energy. All of these things that we do create a feeling of change within you. And doesn't kind of, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. I used to be very much like, it has to be perfect, you have to do everything in this specific way or it's not going to work. But it doesn't, because actually the change it's creating is within you. So you know, I just think that's again, this is a place I feel like where you can take so much personal power, because you can create this change. You can literally go, you know, if I sit there and meditate, I can just sit down and do my meditation, and that's cool. But if I light a candle and I light an incense, then I'm going to drop into that space so much deeper, because I've trained myself to believe that that's the magical space, you know. So it's also things like this, recognizing how the human computer fucking works. This stuff literally will reprogram you. It's one of the easiest ways.
I love that
Isn't it?
sentence.
It's good. It's the reprogramming.
Yeah.
And we talk about it a lot. We talk about it with our manifestation, like this changing your frequency and all that kind of stuff. But I think sometimes it can, everything, I don't know, it's ironic to say, but I can be really overwhelmed by how spiritual shit can be. And it's so serious. But actually, sometimes it makes me feel so much better to understand it as that, as a reprogramming or a retuning, like, and to understand that my brain is a computer, a biocomputer, and that I have the ability to reprogram that. That fucking makes sense to me. And it makes me feel like I do actually have the ability to do the things that I want and need to do, kind of thing. I don't know, that was a long rant.
Yeah, no, I think this has been an episode of long rants. Yes. A couple of moments of forgetting what the hell we were talking about, and then long rants piled on top of that. It's going to be great. Hope you're enjoying yourself, guys. No, I completely, this idea of this reprogramming ourselves. You're constantly picking up the energy from other people on a daily basis. You may be carrying around shit that's not even your own. So you doing this, maintaining this daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, setting this space to be able to retune, reprogram, think through the last however long, and think about perhaps the way in which you can handle that situation going forward now that you've learned from it. You know, all of that helps to rewire our neural pathways. It keeps you neuroplastic in the mind. It keeps you growing. It keeps you evolving. Because if you are growing and evolving, you're going to find it easier each time you come up against anything that, you know, makes you feel anxious or scared or upset, and you're going to be able to handle it with a little more grace each time. And that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to find new graceful ways to handle situations, because if we don't, then we're just constantly going to be spending a life getting into conflict with people. And, you know, you'll achieve a lot more in your life by being in communion with people than you will being in conflict with people. And that doesn't mean shrinking yourself down or not setting your boundaries. In fact, it's highlighting the kindest ways you can do those for yourself. The kindest ways, so that you are able to step out into the world as the most communicative version of yourself. Things just go a lot better then. And I think if you can think of yourself getting towards that point, that's what you're working towards, and understand that it isn't something that you get given in a pill. It takes work. Then you will start to see the value in the work. It's weird. I can be really work shy at times.
Me too, babe.
But this is like work. Yeah, this is work that I don't mind doing. I don't mind that it takes a daily. I'm not going to lie and say I absolutely love it. It's so good doing all of this shadow work and rituals where sometimes you're sat there like sobbing to yourself, sobbing for some ancestors 7 generations ago that you've never met, but you're sobbing for them. It's not always fun. It's not glamorous, and I guess now's as good a time as any to like pick on some of these beautiful rituals that we see on TikTok, which they look great, but where's the heart? Where's the heart? If you're not doing these things, if you're doing these things heartlessly, like without that sort of thought and emotion and connection, then it's just you putting some rose petals in a jar for Instagram, babe. That's all it is.
Oh god, I'm so sorry. That's hilarious. Agreed.
I'm not talking. You know what I'm on about. I'm not talking about the people who are really in it. They're genuinely like, these are the herbs that you need to be able to use to help you and move forward in your life. It's like, no, here's a really witchy, pretty image. Isn't it pleasing aesthetically?
This is the thing, man. I think Emma spoke about this, our mentor, our RBM mentor. She spoke about it recently on a TikTok or whatever. Like, your ritual bath ain't gonna look like that fucking ritual bath on Instagram, bruv. It's not gonna look like that. It's gonna look like a hot mess. And the hot messier it looks, the more it's gonna work. And then there's gonna be some epic cleanup afterwards, so you don't block the drain. Like, we need to realize these things, like the reality.
I love seeing these pictures on Instagram and TikTok, like these videos where someone's like laid out these baths with like lemons and it's like flower heads, and it looks beautiful. It looks idyllic, and it's like hashtag self-care, hashtag spiritual bath. Really, yeah, what you need is to wad up some nettles, feel the sting.
I'm just gonna say,
in the bath.
I don't know if it's just me, but if that spiritual bath looks pretty, like it needs to, for me, it needs to look like I don't really want to get in it for me to feel like it's going to work. It's like, what is this, swamp water?
Like pond water. It's just a load of green in here. You come out, it's all stuck to you. That's the real cleanse.
Exactly.
That is going to get you spiritually, like,
that is going to clean you up.
Spiritually wavy, fam.
You actually said something earlier that I really do want to touch on for this. You said about, like, for example, doing smoke clearing with your sage and making sure that you don't just create a void and that you invite stuff back in. And I feel like this is something that is actually missed quite a lot, because everyone's all about their sage, all about their white sage, like, which it really.
So now you've cleared the space. Now what? Exactly. What exists?
That's
here?
What I'm saying is everyone's like, okay, let's just get some sage. Sage is gonna be the one to do, and sage is a fucking beautiful, strong herb, and it is gonna clean that space. But once something is open, it's okay. So imagine like this, right? You've got a glass of water. Wow, water is all about. I'm all about that in this episode. You've got a glass of water. It's full, right? So then you open. So you want to empty the glass. So you empty it into, like, you put it into a pot of water, right? The water that's in it is going to come out, but more water is just going to keep going in. As soon as that void is emptied, then it's going to almost act like a vacuum, and it's going to pull whatever's there back into that space. So if you're going to use a sage-like herb, you also then a herb like sage. That didn't sound right. A herb like sage that cleanses the space like that. Then you also want to use something that is going to invite in what you want. Rosemary's great. It's beautiful for protection. So if you're doing something,
I love using rosemary.
Do you know what? One of the things I love about rosemary is just having it there as a protection. So when I had lived in a house, I used to have 2 rosemary plants, and they sat on either side of my front door. So that was it. Nothing bad was fucking coming through that front door. Only bad stuff was when I was coming out. No, I'm joking. So really be aware of actually the tools that you're using. There are so many different things, and I think especially it's really important to learn what your country uses. So obviously at the moment everyone's all about white sage and Palo Santo. Now if you live in England, that shit don't grow here. It doesn't come from here.
It comes all the way from
all
the
the way
other
from the
side
other
of the
side of the
world.
world.
It's not
We
great.
have stuff that we have any country you're from will have its own magic, its own genus loci, the spirits of that space that you are supposed to connect with, its own herbs that are going to work the best in that space. So kind of having a look, like I love just like our normal, I don't even know what you call it, red sage, I think, green sage, whatever it is that we've got over here. Beautiful, simple, also really good for cooking.
Yeah, you can get it from Asda.
Babe.
Simple. I go to Asda for your ritual bath.
Exactly.
Like, Tesco, done.
You're done. You
don't need to order this white sage from some person who claims to be a shaman from like Santa Barbara.
Exactly. It's always going to be somewhere like that.
Get it from where you are.
What's the other one? Joshua Tree. That's the place to go, I think. But yeah, kind of being aware of that stuff and knowing that you have everything you need around you to create these rituals. I also just I looked up because I wanted to know what the word ritual actually meant, because obviously we are talking about it loads, but I thought, let me just come with an actual, Britannica Encyclopedia says ritual, the performance of ceremonial acts prescribed by tradition or sacerdotal decree. I've never heard that word before. Ritual is a specific observable mode of behavior exhibited by all known societies. It is thus possible to view ritual as a way of defining or describing humans. I fucking love that. Everywhere you've gone in the world, every sect, society, culture of human beings has ritual. It is fucking formative for human beings to have ritual. This is a place where we can connect.
It's kind of mad. Like the whole reason we have fights and wars over things is because you've essentially not been indoctrinated into the same.
It's fucking crazy, isn't it?
Rituals that I have.
This is another conversation. Let's not even start going down that road, babe, because we don't have that long left.
We don't have that long left.
But yeah, I just think it's another great place to understand that it connects us all as human beings. There's obviously such a big conversation about what we're taking, what we're appropriating, what we're appreciating. Really important fucking conversation. There's also another level of it, I feel, where there has to come a time where we start to understand the things that connects us just as human beings, as human fucking beings on this planet. And ritual is one of those spaces, and it is so easy to create ritual for your people. I love, because I was for a long time doing women's circles, and they're really beautiful, simple ways to connect. And women have this I just wanted to drop this little fact in there before we go. This is scientific fucking fact, boy. Women, when six or more of women get together in the same space in an energy of support, of love, non-bitchiness, non-judgment, then we all start to naturally release oxytocin. Men do not have the same thing. It doesn't happen when they gather. When women gather, we are supposed to fucking gather in this way, and we are supposed to support and create ritual.
Right. So we're starting women's circles down at the YMCA in Tottenham. Be there Saturday. Just all of the women, anyone who identifies as female, turn up.
But look, she's joking.
We're doing a love circle.
She's fucking joking about it. But this is one of the things we are going to be offering, for us to have these circles where we can gather. So get ready.
Yeah.
Get ready.
Wow, do you know what? I feel like that's a factoid in the back of my mind where I'm like, I must have known that. Or maybe I felt that, because when I have been in situations where the women around me have genuinely been lovely, and there's a lot of us, buzzing.
Yeah.
I'm probably yapping more than I am now.
We are wonderful beings.
It's great.
We are fucking wonderful, full of magic, constantly connected to the universe. Don't let anyone tell you you're not. You are special goddesses. and no drama about anyone else, whoever you are, whoever you identify, that is absolutely fine. But just in the sense of like the tradition and us having this sisterhood, I think it's really important to kind of recognize that the connection between women is actually so beautiful, and it is like nothing else, like nothing else. It's come to our circles anyway.
How lovely. Well, I think now is a good a time as any. If you've got any rituals that you do, let us know, on our Instagram page underneath our posts. Like, yeah, tell people about what we're talking about here too. Visit us on Instagram, the Afro Animist Podcast, TikTok, the Afro Animist Podcast, Twitter, Afro Animist. If you've not seen us on YouTube or you've not seen us on Spotify, we're on both and either, so you can make your way to both and either. And yeah, probably worth mentioning, on the 15th of October, at the Magical Women's Conference, we are going to be doing a workshop on shadow work, Afro-Indigenous shadow practices, and how it helps us to evolve as human beings, and how it's important to understand the shadow and the Afro-diasporic means to understanding what the shadow is. Because it's not going to be purely an Afro-diasporic event, we're going to be teaching these principles in a roundabout way, talking through deities from various traditions that might be more applicable to a wider audience, but at its core, it's what we know from Obia and Indigenous practices. So it's going to be a really, really good talk, and I'm really excited about being able to run this like journey work session.
Oh my gosh,
it's gonna be so good.
It's gonna be so good, guys.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, get yourselves ticket and turn up, because otherwise you're missing out. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm terrified.
Ken's, yeah. She's terrified, but she's gonna be perfectly fine. She's gonna be full like stage mode when she's out. It's gonna be good. No, but we're going to be bringing to you guys something that is actually really important to us, and things that we have first-hand experience doing, something that is core to our spiritual lineages with Obia and various other practices that we use. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good. So that's the Magical Women's Conference. That's gonna be in London. I think is it in Kensington? It's in London. Magical Women's Conference in London. Look it up. Put a link.
Link below.
Yeah. On that note, thank you for listening to the Afro Animist Podcast.
Yes.
I've been Jay Percy, the artist,
and I'm Nicola. As always, it has been amazing. And tune in next week.
See you then. Bye.